Welcome back to Logic Basics. We're going to get right on to our topic, and we were looking at the handout Reason and Being. This is our third in the series of topics, of subtopics on Reason and Being. This episode will be about being and our most basic belief. Now, we've talked about this a little bit when we talked about our house, and we said that logic is concerned with epistemology, which was the ground level, and then metaphysics was that foundation, and ethics was the structure. So we're talking now about foundation, basic beliefs. We also argued using the square of opposition that there are only two basic beliefs. Either all is eternal or only some is eternal. And we went over that in a handout and a drawing I made and a video previously. So let's talk more about that. Our most basic belief is about our most basic concept. So now we're going to put concepts and beliefs together. Our most basic concept is that of existence or being. So if I were to hold this pencil up and I would say, what's the most basic thing you can say about this? Some people might say, oh, it's red, or it's plastic, or it writes. But for any of those to be part of this pencil, it has to be. So the most basic thing you can say about the pencil is that it exists. Okay, so our most basic concept is that of existence. That's the most basic thing we can say about anything. It is. And then we could talk about how it is. Okay, now, this is a logical progression here. Our most basic beliefs about our most basic concept. Our most basic concept is that of existence. So let's talk about existence now. Existence is of two kinds. It's either eternal existence or temporal existence. Okay, now which one's more basic, eternal or temporal? Now let me give you some definitions. Eternal is that which has no beginning and no end. It's always. Forever in the past, forever in the future. It's always been there. Temporal is that which has a beginning. It's not always. Now, I also gave the definition for everlasting here because sometimes people have a question about that. What about the soul in Christianity, for example? Everlasting means it had a beginning, but it has no end. It goes on forever. So it is a version of temporal. All right, so eternal and temporal. Which one is more basic? Which one is prior? Well, that's what we talk about next. Eternal existence is prior in two ways to temporal existence. So logically, eternal existence is prior in the order of explanation. So when you're explaining the logical order of where things came from, eternal is the most basic. Where did the universe come from? Well, that's kind of a big thing, right? Well, it would have come from whatever is eternal. So you can go back and back and back until the mind stops at eternal. And then we can't ask, where did eternal come from? Although this question sometimes comes up, where did God come from? Well, if God is a being and God exists, then God didn't come from anywhere. Come from is a category of temporality. So come from is only for temporal things. Okay, does that make sense? So eternal is something that has always been there. It didn't come from anything. It's always. Ontologically, in the order of being, all that exists has its source in what is eternal. I know this could be mind-blowing, right? Wait a minute, what? There's something that's eternal? We'll have to go over that argument again. We did give you the argument, but we'll go over it again. Now maybe you're seeing implications at a deeper level. So in the order of being, all that exists has its source in what is eternal. So if there are temporal things, the temporal things came from the eternal thing, which didn't come from anywhere. It's always been. There are no unique events in an eternal being or cycle. Let's talk about this. This is a sort of an abstract idea, but a unique event is a one-time occurrence in forever. So if something has always been forever in the past, forever in the future, it can't have a one-time occurrence. Either everything happens always or it doesn't happen at all. This is a logical implication of eternality. So here are a couple of examples. If, let's say, matter has always existed in the past and will always exist in the future, then the universe and all the material that exists can't end. It has to keep going. Another example is if my soul is eternal and going through a process of reincarnation, then enlightenment would be impossible, because enlightenment would be a one-time occurrence. I've been around for all of eternity. How come I'm not enlightened already? So these are going to be philosophical problems that come up with this concept of eternal and unique occurrences or unique events. We'll see those coming out. All right, let's move on a little bit further. What exists is either matter or spirit. So we're talking about temporal and eternal. Now we have matter and spirit. These categories, temporal and eternal, matter and spirit, are the core components or basic components of metaphysics. And so we're going to go through the logical options. What happens when you combine eternal and temporal with matter and spirit? You get all of the logical options. And so that's why we're going through this now. What are our logical options when we apply reason to being? All right, so let's define our terms here. First, matter is that which has size or is extended. Philosophers like the word extended. Matter has size and is not conscious. And by conscious, we mean self-aware. So think about this. Do atoms have size? Yes. We can detect them. They can be measured. They're extended. Are they conscious? No. An atom is not conscious. What about if you put 2 atoms together? Or 4, or 5, or 1 billion? They're still not conscious. Now, material monism is a position that says all that exists is matter. And this problem of consciousness, apparently we're conscious. So if I'm matter and only matter, then we have to explain consciousness in terms of matter only, and that's going to be a problem. But for our definition, matter has size and it is not conscious. And I have here energy is an aspect of matter. How do we know that? Well, we have this equation, E equals mc squared. Energy is mass times the speed of light. So energy and matter are interchangeable. They are both matter, or they both have size. It can be measured. They're physical. Spirit, on the other hand, has no size, meaning it's not extended, and it is conscious. It is self-aware. Again, a material monist will deny the reality of spirit. They're monists. They say there's one thing, and this one thing is matter. Now, on the other hand, a spiritual monist will say there's one thing and it's spirit. There is no matter, and they're mutually exclusive. So we need to keep our definitions here. Matter has size, is not conscious. Spirit has no size and is conscious. Now let's look at this. Matter and spirit are mutually exclusive, and there is no third option. Okay, there's no third option between matter and spirit. And this has been a contentious issue with some skeptics. So I've made a very lengthy proof that I will show later in the logic basics. When we get to using the square of opposition, I will use this proof to show that there's no third option. But what this means, the third option, is that there is no non-extended thing that is non-conscious. If it's not extended and it's non-conscious, then it's no thing at all. There's no thing. All right, so I have to give that argument, and I will give it later when we get to the unit on judgment and the square of opposition. Okay, I'm going to pause here, and our next topic will go over something must be eternal and applications of that. Okay, so we're still talking about being in our most basic belief. We're going to see what are the options under basic beliefs. So let's pause here, and that'll be our next unit.